wraps up the national news. International news is next.
FM 88, the voice of Thailand. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and our website.
And that was the business news. Up next, international news. International news. Welcome back to Radio Thailand. The time is now 12:31 here in the capital. First up in our international news segment, the ailing Queen Elizabeth II made her first major public appearance in months at a Thanksgiving service for her late husband, Prince Philip, who died last year, aged 99. The monarch, who turns 96 next month, has not attended a high-profile event outside her home since she spent a night in hospital last October. Ill health, including a bout of COVID-19 and difficulties walking and standing, forced her to pull out of the Commonwealth Day service at the last minute on March 14. Buckingham Palace only confirmed her attendance at Prince Philip's memorial service around 2 hours before it was due to start at the Westminster's Abbey in central London. Unlike other members of her family and guests, she arrived by a side entrance and used a walking stick as she was helped to her seat by her second son, the 62-year-old Prince Andrew. It was Andrew's first public appearance since settling a U.S. civil claim for sexual assault, and after public outrage at her friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew then took up a seat in the front row alongside his younger brother, Prince Edward, and his elder brother, Prince Charles, sister, Prince Anne, and the Queen sat opposite. The Duke of Edinburgh, whom the Queen was married for 73 years, died on April 9 last year, just a few weeks short of his 100th birthday after treatment for a heart condition.
Moscow's negotiators Tuesday said Russia will radically reduce its military activity in northern Ukraine, including near the capital Kyiv, after meaningful talks in Istanbul. Chief negotiator Vladimir Medinsky said there had been a meaningful discussion at the talks and that Ukrainian proposals would be put to Russian President Vladimir Putin. He also said that Putin could meet Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky. Medinsky said the Ukrainian aid side had presented written proposals which he said called for Ukraine to become a permanently neutral state under international security guarantees aimed at giving it non-nuclear status. He said that under Kyiv's proposals, these guarantees would not cover Russia-annexed Crimea or the separatist regions of Lugansk and Donetsk, which he said meant Kyiv would give up attempts to return these regions militarily. According to Medinsky, Ukraine's proposals also include an agreement for it not to enter military alliances or host foreign bases. He said that Kyiv's proposals were conditional on Russia not objecting to Ukraine's striving to join the EU. The Russian negotiator said Kyiv is also calling for the final agreement to be reached at a meeting between Zelensky and Putin. Medinsky said in comments reported by state news agency TASS that the proposals were absolutely not the provisions of an agreement, but proposals from the Ukrainian side that we consider a constructive step in seeking compromises and that will be considered by Russia.
Now, to the contentious security agreement between Solomon Islands and China. The Solomon Islands Prime Minister said a contentious security agreement with Beijing was ready for signing, denying reports that his country had been pressured to allow a Chinese naval base to be built in the Pacific island nation. In an impassioned speech to Parliament, Prime Minister Manessa Sogover offered little detail on the final deal beyond saying that there was no intention whatsoever to ask China to build a military base in the Solomon Islands. He dismissed reports in the Australian media that his country was being pressured by China to build the base. A draft version of the agreement leaked last week sent shockwaves through Canberra because it included proposals that would allow Chinese security and naval deployments to the Pacific nation. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison this week said reports of the deal were a reminder of the constant pressure and threats that present the region to the own national security. Scott Morrison said he had been in contact with New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who this week called the draft deal gravely concerning. But Beijing on Tuesday dismissed all concerns, calling the pact beyond reproach. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbing said a routine briefing that China hoped the relevant countries can earnestly respect the Solomon Islands' sovereignty instead of condescendingly believing that they have the right to tell the Solomon Islands what it should or what should not do.
Australia's government will increase spending on defense and national security while reducing household expenses, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said before revealing the budget on Tuesday, made with an eye on upcoming elections. With Russia at war with Ukraine and China's military becoming more assertive, Frydenberg foreshadowed further investments in defense and national security reflecting the challenges that we now face. The budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st comes ahead of general elections due by May 21st, in which Prime Minister Scott Morrison's Conservative government will seek a fourth three-year term. With inflation increasing in Australia and many parts of the world driven in part by higher oil prices, the government is expected to reduce its 44.2 Australian dollars a litre tax on gasoline. The Australian Institute for Petroleum said the national gasoline price average fell 5.8 Australian dollars last week to $2.06 per litre. Frydenberg said he would also reveal a material improvement to the budget bottom line. Economists are expecting a deficit of between 80 billion Australian dollars and 70 billion Australian dollars for the current fiscal year, compared with the 99.2 billion Australian dollars shortfall predicted by the government in December.
Now, the Chinese Foreign Ministry and the State Department said a top U.S. diplomat will meet this week in China to discuss issues in Afghanistan with his Chinese, Russian, and Pakistani counterparts. The State Department spokesperson said the United States understands that China has invited Taliban representatives to the talks in Tongxi. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said Chinese Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Xu Xiaoyong, will host the meeting. The State Department spokesperson said U.S. Special Representative for Afghanistan, Tom West, will attend the talks of the so-called extended troika, the three world powers plus Pakistan. The talks come against the backdrop of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and as Afghanistan suffers an economic and humanitarian crisis worsened by a financial aid cutoff following the Taliban takeover as U.S.-led troops departed in August. A UN official said that they've also come amid widespread condemnation of the Taliban's U-turn last week on allowing girls to attend public high schools, which has sparked condemnation amongst funders ahead of a key aid donors conference. The retention of the ban prompted U.S. officials to cancel talks in Doha with the Taliban, and a State Department warning that Washington saw the decision as a potential turning point in their engagement with the militants. The State Department spokesperson said the United States believes that it shares with other extended Troika members an interest in the Taliban making good and commitments to form an inclusive government, cooperate on counterterrorism, and rebuild the Afghan economy.
And lastly, in international news, a Sumatran rhino has successfully given birth in an Indonesian sanctuary, environment officials said, in a boost for conservation efforts targeting the critically endangered animal. The World Fund for Nature estimates fewer than 80 Sumatran rhinos remain in the world, mainly on the Indonesian island of Sumatra and Borneo. A rhino named Rosa gave birth to a female calf on Thursday in Waikambas National Park in Sumatra after suffering 8 miscarriages since 2005 when she was brought in from the wild for a breeding program. The calf, who has yet to be named, brings the number of Sumatran rhinos in the Waikambas sanctuary to 8. Successful births are rare. The calf's father, named Andatu, was the first Sumatran rhino born in a sanctuary in more than 120 years.
And with that, we wrap up our international business news segment. And that wraps up our international segment. Don't go away, because in our international business segment, Japan and U.S. to communicate closely on the FX as the yen hits a 6-year low. Stay tuned.
Don't know what you're messing with. Why in the hell don't you leave it alone?
Who is she?
They look just like you and I, but inside they're different. They have no soul.
Who are you?
They call me the garbage man. I dispose of human garbage.
Why are you telling me all this?
Because you're in danger. Yes, and a little accident, an escape. They're very real, very dangerous, Jeff. Be careful.